the process of getting down to 53, or I guess maybe 48. Les mentioned on the broadcast last night that you guys kind of go to 48 and then figure out, 49 to 69 as far as practice squad, maybe guys that don't dress on game days, things like that. When you're figuring out, I guess it would be 49 to 53, what goes into, who you want to put in those spots and maybe potentially protect from practice squad and waivers and things like that versus guys who would be on the practice squad?
Yeah, I think kind of you just answered it, Stu. So there's a lot of layers to it. Ultimately, it's about the most competitive roster against the Bills on September 8th with our 48 based on the personnel groupings we want to utilize offensively, defensively. When you start talking about those, 44 to 48 bodies, it's heavily influenced by Joe D and Jeremy Springer from a special teams perspective and standpoint. So certainly a lot of layers to it. We're continuing to work through that right now. It's a good problem because we've got such a competitive roster, but in a lot of instances, there's probably a lot more clarity than maybe some other teams as it relates to just how we approach the preseason. But you kind of answered it with the way that you asked the question and everything that we're going through right now.
Sean, what goes in the decision when you're trying to decide if you want to keep two or three quarterbacks on your roster?
Really just the overall production and play of those guys. And then, okay, do we envision having two or three up on game day? But ultimately it is about the play. And then there's an element, Sarah, to looking at, all right, would this be somebody, if you did leave them susceptible to the waiver wire, if we lost them, how would we feel about that if we couldn't get them on the practice squad or whatever? So ultimately it comes down to if you've earned the right to make the team. And then there is the element of, do you keep two up? Would you ever go with three up during the game, with your 48? And so, but it's ultimately about the play at the end of the day is the most important thing.
Quentin Lake in a while. I think he has a knee injury. Any update on him? Is he close to coming back?
No, you know what? Not really an update, Gilbert. We're just kind of taking it a day at a time with him. It was a unique situation and circumstance. So right now, no updates on him.
Okay, and you got to watch Russ Yeast, the other rookie safety. What do you think about his camp? And could it come down to a choice between him and Quentin Lake?
No, I don't think it'll have to get down to that. Russ has done a good job. He's really played really well. He played, every play in the first half and played all the teams yesterday. And he's only getting better. He's got great range, really coachable, high football character guy. And so really like him. And I feel very similar. If you see the demeanor and the way that Quentin Lake has handled himself in the meetings and just the way that he's attacking, getting himself healthy and ready to go with Reggie and his group. Both these guys are people that we anticipate being very helpful contributors for the Rams.
One more on AJ Curry. He played left tackle yesterday. How did he look? And he's somebody you think he could be maybe an 8th or 9th lineman on the roster? Yeah,
he's definitely in consideration. I think he's only gotten better, taking coaching from Kevin Carberry and Nick Jones, and he's got a good look in his eye, and he's done a lot of really good things. And I think you've seen the improvement from preseason week 1 to yesterday, and that was evident just based on taking your experience, applying it the right way, and then trusting the techniques and the fundamentals that Carberry's asking him to execute to be able to play at a high level.
The week ahead, will you finish that cuts process early relative to the Tuesday deadline, or when are you guys thinking that'll be?
Yeah, so we'll have a chance to practice tomorrow with the same group, and then Tuesday morning we'll represent those decisions and things like that. We have to mandate giving guys 3 days in a row off per the CBA. So Tuesday through Thursday, we'll reflect that for our team, Jordan, with us playing on the 8th. And so that'll give us the opportunity to kind of operate in the normal time frame as far as making those cuts on Tuesday morning, like you asked.
How big of a concern is that moving into this season with Cam and Daryl's situation, and understanding it's something you guys have been through for the last couple of years as well?
Yeah, it's it's not ideal. You want your guys to be able to practice and perform as much as possible, but not at the point where it's got diminishing returns if you're pushing it unnecessarily, and then they can't be the players they're capable of being. So in an ideal situation, they would have been practicing a lot more, but I do feel good about getting Daryl back, like I had mentioned. If you look at it from a positive, you want Cam and Daryl out there as much as possible, but it's forced Kyron and Jake Funk to get reps, and Trey Regis reps that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So you've seen growth, no different than we want Van out there. But when Van's missed some time, it's for some development from Tutu or Ben Skoranek or Brandon Powell. So depending upon the approach you take, it's kind of that half glass full, even though you want your guys to be there. And so that is the standard operating procedure.
With receiver, noticed a couple of those guys who are fighting for those maybe 6, 7, 8 spots playing on special teams over the last couple of weeks and then in the practices. But how do you kind of balance that with that being an expectation for guys who are battling to make a spot versus maybe players who you guys have tried on special teams, but doesn't look like they will be, such as Tutu Atwell, not playing in maybe such a large special teams role?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. But really, if you look at it, if you're a situational role starter, your best chance of getting up on our 48 is to be able to contribute for Joe DeCamillis and Jeremy Springer. And so there's always exceptions, but it is a very unique approach. There's also the element of utilizing practice squad flexes, which you have a maximum of 2 of those. So there's a handful of things that come into it, but ultimately these guys need to understand that if you're a situational role starter for us, you've got to create some value for yourself on special teams to give yourself the best chance to be up and active with the 48 on game day. It doesn't mean that it's mandatory, but it is very important to us.
Most of us, we're surprised by Lance McCutcheon. We're surprised by a couple other things, but what stood out to you about this camp and in particular first camp as defending champions?
Yeah, I don't know that it was anything different than a lot of the normal things you work through, Greg, but because we finished up so late, we've had some unique circumstances that you work through, whether you look at, Matthew earlier on in camp or, you have Van go down. We talked about the backs. So I think, as it relates to just making sure that one of our goals is get to September 8th healthy and ready to go and managing that, but understanding the tactical and the sports science approach and balancing those two things is always a unique balancing act. But I do feel really good about where we're at. Things are never perfect, but I think the urgency, the mindset, the leadership of where we're at with our group, with our players and coaches, I'm really excited. And, there's a different sense of urgency that I think you wake up with today, knowing that now we're really starting to tailor our focus and concentration exclusively towards Buffalo, while also making sure that we do a great job of giving the respect that is necessary and that's been earned by these guys as we make a lot of tough decisions over the next couple of days. But every single year entails different approaches. But for us, I'm excited, I'm confident, but I'm also, really looking forward to rolling our sleeves up and going to work on the Bills.